care with every corner and crease. The ribbon is tied just so. The handwriting on the label is perfect. The message is written with love and shows that the giver knows exactly what you need, what you want. Now think about something that you did not ask for and did not want, that had no ribbons or no bow and no fancy paper, and yet which somehow turned out to be a gift anyway. Once again, we are bidding 12 strangers hello and bidding adieu to 12 who we have come to know 12 months behind us. It seems in some ways as if we have barely gotten to know the ones that are leaving. Yet a year is closing and another is opening for us, and here we are. This is the time when talk of gifts is like receiving in this particular time when you're already very satiated from the holidays, an actual gift of more food. It's too much too soon, or else it's too late. And as someone whose busiest season leads up to the services on Christmas Eve, I am often the one, as someone who likes to bake, who gives the person the dreaded gift of something sweet on December 26th, 7th, or 8th. And yet, it is not time yet to stop all talk of gifts. This is, in fact, the time to think of the gifts of the year rapidly passing us by, because sometime in the next few days, I would invite you to take the time to think about each of the months that are going past, and to see if you can identify in each of them one gift that you received. It sounds easy. It's not as easy as you think. As we live our lives faster and faster and are busier and busier, it can be hard to remember sometimes when the carousel of days blurs past us. And yet, it is worth taking some time thinking back to be sure you received all the gifts that were under last year's tree. Yes, some of them came in beautiful paper, and some came tucked under soiled cardboard or hidden in unmowed grass. Some were things of beauty, and others were made of little bits and scraps and more than a little ragtag. Some of them were welcomed and embraced, and others you held at arm's length. But a gift at its most basic, is something that you have received, something that you now possess. We often think of gifts in terms of what we want to receive, and yet they aren't always that. A gift can be something whose usefulness will depend on the way that you receive it. The time when someone spoke a truth you needed to hear, or when you had the courage to look at a part of your life that you had allowed to go fallow. A quiet moment when you learned something about your own heart. An occasion when you laughed until you cried, or you cried until you laughed. A sunset which took your breath away. A night sky which gave you stars that seemed close enough to touch. A chance to test a new skill that you thought you had but were never really quite sure. A goodbye which made you conscious of the preciousness of life. So before this year ends, I invite you to take some time and to think about its gifts. What are the gifts you received gladly in the year just past? Which are the ones you were slower to open and to make room for? And as we sing together in a few minutes, think about intention and how our intentions allow us to frame what life gives us. To see the silver lining in the cloud, the silk purse in the sow's ear, or just simply to see moment by moment the very gift of life before us. Let us sing together. Welcoming in. When we are preparing a place for a baby to be born, we have to make the office. We have to take out the desks and bookshelves and the papers. This was a place where we did good work that helped us grow, and now we clear it and clean it to make room for a good new growing. When we get new furniture, we have to clear the old furniture, and even though most of the old furniture might have been perhaps bought at yard sales or a few pieces literally scooped up from the side of the road, still we remember the meals that we ate at that table, finger the places where the puppy cut her teeth on that chair leg, laugh at how many times we assembled and reassembled those particular bookshelves. When the child is ready to move into her adult life, how rapidly, suddenly, she can let go of the things that have been so dear and precious and untouchable for all those years of her childhood. The old toys and papers are no longer as sacred. Even the swimming trophies and the class pictures and the countless stuffed animals. Somehow, they can be released. Well, maybe not the stuffed animals. Putting aside, making room. There is a foundation called the Echoing Green Foundation, which helps young social entrepreneurs grow their dreams, and it reminds us, after all, saying yes to what really matters to you almost always means saying no to some other things that you used to do. So before we speak of welcoming in, we need to make room and do that talk of letting go, which we've done. Letting go, which is the focus of the spiritual traditions, because in every other aspect of our life, we are trained to hold on, to cling on, to persevere, to never give up, to not let go of that dream until it is time to let it go. To let go of good things and times past which cannot be recreated, of hopes and dreams that will not be realized, of the best things which happened and which echo in memory, and yet which now cannot be allowed to drown out what might be happening in this moment or the next. Of the way you knew yourself perhaps at one point in your life, in a particular time and place, which is now past, and which you need to release to know yourself in this particular place and time of your life. To let go of your own fears, which keep you bound up and limited. When you think of it, much of the work of welcoming in is preparing the open space for letting there be room. For when we have room, we can welcome in. And to welcome in the new people who we think may have a role to play in our lives, to welcome in new ideas, new habits, new routines, new ways of being, to welcome in perhaps more silence, more time, more solace, to welcome in peace and challenge, and yes, to even welcome in the possibility of failure. Because without that, there might be something we don't try and welcome in. So as we prepare in these days before the dawning of a new year, let us take a few moments to think together. What needs to be loosed and freed in your life? How are you preparing space and room for the welcoming in? What is it that you are creating an opening for? What is it that you hope to welcome in, even if you are afraid to say what it is, to state it in your own heart? What needs to be welcomed in? And how, in welcoming in, do you return again to that essence of who you are? Let's take a moment and thank these wonderful people who have been willing to lead us in song today. This is really wonderful to have them with us today. Thank you. And I want to particularly thank Jo Gelinas, who gives us her gifts each week in our Vesper service as well. The word intention is tied to the root of the word, and that word is to tend. So when we think about setting our intentions, we are talking about that to which we pledge to tend. And for those of you that are gardeners, that's probably a good image. So the word attention is in the same word family as are the words for retain and hold and continue and maintain and entertain, for that matter, for those of you that are better at being hosts than being gardeners. This word is also a close cousin to the word to stretch and also to sustain. So when we think of our intentions, we think of those things that might stretch us and which we might have to work to sustain. This is common sense stuff here. Really what we're talking about when we think of our intentions is what we will pay attention to, what we will notice, what we will know, what we will allow to shape us as much as we are in control of things. We hear a lot about resolutions this time of year, and I think resolutions are simply intentions dressed up in some fancy garb here. So at the beginning of a new time of our life, which is of course every new day in our life, but particularly as we start a new year, we can find ourselves thinking about these things, wondering and thinking and pondering and setting intentions. What do we want more of in our lives? What do we want less of? What good do we want to be part of bringing into the world? What hopes do we want to nurture? What skills do we want to grow? What people do we want to share our hours with? And these questions guide us because while we may ask that nothing evil cross our doors, something may. Evil in the sense that we know it, something that divides us one from another, from the best intentions of our hearts, because that, in the greatest sense, is what evil is. So if we know what our intentions are, if we know where we are going, we can enter into hope together. So I'm going to close this part of my reflection this morning by inviting you back into a meditation, and it's one inspired by the Echoing Green Foundation. They work a great deal with young people who want to be social entrepreneurs, and they have these principles for how to do this. But what I have learned, if I have learned one thing from this wonderful congregation, and it's that among its many chronologically gifted people have taught me, it's that it's never, never too late to have an aspiration. So I invite us all into the spirit of meditation one more time. Here are their principles. May I remember in this year that heart and head can work together, and may I find ways to collapse the divisions between these two precious aspects of myself. May I know what I have and also know what I need. May I not be afraid to uncover my unique contributions to the world and also be willing to ask for help from others. May I not be afraid to mine my past, reflect on my history in order to understand what motivates me, what has shaped me, both positively and negatively. May I remember what matters to me and how I wish to do good in the world. What part feels like a priority for me to spend some of my time addressing. May I act on moments of obligation, those moments in which I am moved to help heal the world, no matter how silly or small my small efforts may look in the face of large problems. May I make time and room for perspective, someone else's, opening my heart and cultivating a deep curiosity about the world and its many people. May I understand that the more I let in, the more I can see connections and patterns and be prepared to receive the gifts of this increasingly diverse world. May I understand that fear means go. May I learn to distinguish between healthy fear and barrier fears, which stem from my insecurities. May I know that when I find a barrier fear, that sometimes I need to go towards, not away from that which scares me. May I be bold in my learning about what I want to know. May I be bold and not afraid to think big. May I remember that failure is one of life's greatest learning tools. And may I move through my life with an entrepreneurial spirit, willing to apply my focus, my energy, as much as I am given, to my endeavors which hold my highest intentions. May this be our deep ask as we prepare to begin a new year. And so as we prepare to let love guide us in our final hymn, we close with these words by Rainer Maria Rilke, who said, "And now we prepare to welcome the new year, full of things that have never been. So let us, as we prepare to do so in love. Let us rise in body or spirit and join in our closing hymn. It's number 131, Love Will Guide Us."